You're here because you want a quick and unique icebreaker activity. Admittedly, I greatly prefer the phrase connection before content over icebreaker, but in this video, typically icebreakers are geared toward meeting new people, strangers, etc. But you might be watching this and have an intact team or a group or a class that you've taught all semester, and you need something to freshen it up. This activity is really, really good for that context. I'm gonna share this activity and how it can be done in 60 seconds and in 6 minutes if you want to extend it a little bit. I'm also, perhaps most importantly, gonna share how to frame it, especially to a group of, let's say, logic-minded, introvert-leaning engineers who hate icebreakers. Because if you can frame it to that group, you can frame it meaningfully to just about anybody. The exercise is called Minute of Minutiae, and I thought of it while I was brushing my teeth one night, because I realized I record all these videos, I present to audiences, I get to meet thousands and thousands of people every year, and yet never one single time have I shared with a group about the experience of brushing my teeth. And then I realized, as a metaphor, that there's actually all these things in my life and your life and everybody else's life that are in the category of minutia. They're not significant enough that we really talk about them or share them with anybody. Meaning some things that we do perhaps even every day that we've never shared with anybody before. And so the concept of taking a minute of minutia done in 60 seconds is literally to invite your group to share something so seemingly insignificant that they've never shared it with anybody. Here's why I believe this can create really powerful connection before content. Because it's taking a part of our life that is invisible, that no one else hears about, sees about, we never talk about or share, and making it visible to somebody else. In other words, we're making ourselves a little bit more seen and heard. And that has very powerful and transformative effects when you're talking about a group and a team communicating together on the long term. Now, if you want to do it in 60 seconds, have people drop it in the chat, have people just call out quick things, quick minute of popcorn, just a high energy thing to start off, which will probably spark some laughter, right? Give people a second to think about what minute thing they want to share, they popcorn it out. So for example, we had this toothbrush cup that wasn't working out and it ended up breaking. It was a handmade pot that we made. It was very poorly handmade because I made it, but it ended up breaking. My wife has bought this new replacement that fits Otto, my son's toothpaste, perfectly well in this little well, holds his little tiny Elmo toothbrush, like super cute. And every single day I pick out my bright lime green toothbrush and my Sensodyne, and here we go, right? You can even feel, even watching this, like it's weird. It's a little bit outside of the normal to share, and that novelty is really good for the brain, but it feels weird to share. I don't share that with anybody. I've literally never shared that with anybody else before this moment. The 6-minute version, I would break people off into groups of 3 to 5 people and have them share their little minute of minutia and simply instruct the group to follow their natural, genuine curiosity based on what they heard. I have a friend, Nick, who for work once was moved to this extremely boring town in the middle of absolute nowhere. And so for an entire year almost, he committed to going on micro adventures. And the idea was, instead of taking these big vacations, taking time off of work to go travel somewhere, from Friday at 5 p.m. to Monday at 8 a.m., he would take these little micro weekend adventures. And for a year, he just ventured out of this town and he saw some really amazing things. So the idea there in conversation is, if you ask 3 to 4 questions, instead of spending 3 to 4 nights somewhere, if you ask 3 to 4 questions about even something so minute, those questions are rooted in your natural curiosity, chances are you're gonna end up somewhere very different than the toothpaste, and it's gonna be kind of cool. I'm about to share how to frame this for the group of people that get hives when they hear the word icebreaker. But first, I wanted to share a little bit of evidence that your group will be intrigued by this. I have a client at North Dakota State University, Alyssa and Jen, but they took our We Connect cards, the cards with questions on one side, and spread them around a table, put up a picture of them here, and in the middle of North Dakota State's campus, and just said, skip the small talk, come choose a question, we'll pick one too, and just had dialogues. No catch, no purpose, no intention beyond just choosing a question and having a dialogue with a stranger. People loved it. People sat down and were totally immersed. They were present. They didn't need a point to be present. So if you choose to take the social risk of leading an exercise like this, chances are your group will lean right into it and be like, whoa, this is kind of unique and it feels like safely personal. to be sharing a moment of minutia. Because I'm not saying, this exercise is not called Minute of Dark Deep Secrets. It's called Minute of Minutia. I'm actually asking you to share insignificant things, but what you discover is when you share that with another person, it actually is significant. It becomes a significant point of connection. In fact, this exercise is likely to create lots of inside jokes and laughter and energy that wasn't present in your group before you did it. Jen and Alyssa's initiative is proof that people are happy to share when asked. Quick shout out to Alyssa, by the way, at NDSU, who actually wrote the foreword to my new book, How to Make Virtual Engagement Easy. Now, let's take my people who get hives on their back when they hear the word icebreaker. How do you frame it with a group that's just not into it, right? If you're searching around and watching videos on quick, unique icebreakers that take 60 seconds, you're probably not in that category, but you might be leading the exercise with somebody who is absolutely in that category. You might even have their name. You might picture Jed's eyes rolling as you say the words minute of minutia at the beginning of a meeting. And here are 3 specific ways that you can help frame and win those people over. First, connect what you're doing to purpose, right? Icebreakers often get a bad rap because going around and sharing what color M&M you would be if you were an M&M is not necessarily related to why you're actually there at that meeting or gathering. Connection before content, on the other hand, for me, does connect people to each other, does connect people to the purpose of why they're there also, and gives people the option or choice for authenticity and vulnerability. And so if you can connect the minute of minutia to say, hey, the project we're about to talk about is loaded with details, and if we get them wrong, we're gonna let our customers down. And so I just wanna spend 1 minute on some minutia for some context and connection with each other first. Right? Do you see that? Just a little, that's a pretty distant link, but just something like that. A phrase like that can weave that right into, as opposed to, I really, really don't like when an icebreaker's led and someone says, okay, everybody, we're gonna do an icebreaker. Or, okay, everybody, we're gonna do some connection before we actually start our meeting. It's like, oh, pain. No, like this is the start of the meeting. We're already moving forward. We're warming up our brains. We're getting ready for what's about to happen next. Second way is to frame and position risk versus reward. Take that group of logically minded, introvert-leaning engineers. They are constantly doing calculations of the risk of doing something versus the reward of doing something. And so if I'm framing an exercise to a group of, let's say, software engineers, so I might frame that to them by saying, hey, I know that some of you really have a resistance to the idea of an icebreaker and connection. And so to mitigate that risk, I actually want to just spend 1 minute sharing some minutia as an experiment to see what happens. So you see that, like an experiment, very low risk, like nothing bad's gonna happen. And guess what? If you absolutely hate this, we're gonna be done in 3 minutes. But my invite is to just lean in and be present as an experiment in what happens when you just share one little piece of minutia in your own life with somebody else. The third way I'm gonna frame it to a logically minded, introvert-leaning group is by dropping a little bit of science or research. There's a whole lot of it across this channel and on the internet about the power of connecting, building trust, relationship with trust, and specifically the degree of psychological safety in a group. Google has found the degree of psychological safety in a group to be the #1 predictor of a high-performing team at Google. And if you want to just soak in a whole big dose of that science and research behind connection and doing something like this, you'll really want to watch this video all about what is psychological safety in the workplace. Have an awesome minute of minutia.